a very cool special guest on our show. His name is John Wayne Comunale. I wanted to get that right. He wrote one of my personal favorite books, Sinkhole, and I hope you guys go and check him out. And today we're going to be asking him a couple questions, and I wanted to say welcome and thank you for taking the time out of your day to come on my show.
Absolutely, dude. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Right on. I just wanted to say some of your, before we get into our questionnaire that I gave you, I just wanted to say some of your, I call them dick jokes in your book. Some of them are just make me laugh, and just sometimes I have to reread a page and just go over it again in my mind and relive the joke over and over. So some of your jokes and some of the characters I just wanted to say are just absolutely great. Like the first page of As Seen on TV, he's just talking about her wrinkly old skin. And just the way he's describing it, you can already tell he's like roasting her in his head. But yeah, I just wanted to say
I appreciate that, man. I had a dude buy As Seen on TV. He's actually not coming to me. Like, he went up to his hotel room, came back down, and said, I started reading that. He said, like, her knuckles are like scrotum. He's like, that's good, man. You're a good guy. I was like, thanks, appreciate it. So, thank you, I appreciate it. I'm glad you like it.
Oh, no problem. I like a good comedy. I think you're like I want to say, in my opinion, like a John Waters scenario where you're just go right off with your jokes, and that's the whole point of comedy, right? So, the more shocking, the better.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. Anytime. It's actually, before I get into my interview, it's a mini goal of mine to read all of your books. So I just wanted to say that before I get into my questions. But here's my first question for you, brother. I wanted to know, as a writer, when did you realize I have to start putting some of my stories into books? I'm always curious about authors' backgrounds and stories of like when they just go, hey, I got to start putting this out there.
Man, well, I was always into writing. Like, even as a little kid, I just read voraciously. As always, and I like to write, stupid little stories when you're a kid, just dumb stuff. And I drew comics all the time, like these characters that I would make up. So I was just always into that. And then my mom was always like, "You should be an author one day." And I was like, "Whatever, Mom. I want to be a rock and roll star." So I started like playing guitar, playing bands and stuff. And I still wrote for my music there for a couple of years, and then I had all these ideas, and I was writing all these stories, and I started going, where the hell did these go? What do I do with these, right? So I started researching, I started submitting, I found authors that I liked, and I would go to, like, who published their work, and then research their publishing. So it was just like, it was all just coming to a head where I was like, man, these stories have to go somewhere. And it took a while, to get through and break down those walls, but once I did, it just kind of, the dominoes started falling into place.
Very interesting. I really like to hear the backgrounds on author stories, because everyone has a different story. It's either something that they were actively pursuing or just something they fell into, and either way, you get some of these magnificent art pieces, as I call them, in book forms that, I'm grateful I stumbled upon your books. It was a random thing I was doing one day, looking for a DVD, and they were selling books on a website, and I was like, what the heck is this? So that's very cool. So I was going to ask you another question, but you've already answered it about your childhood and how you, so I guess your mom was the one that told you to basically pursue this.
Well, my mom was, she was a teacher, and then later in her career, she was a counselor at an elementary school, so she was always, like, into that type of thing. But I would, like, I got in trouble, like, I think it was, like, 3rd or 4th grade, where, we get assigned, Ramona Quimby, age 8, or Super Fudge, and say, go home tonight, read the first chapter, and then we'll come back tomorrow, and we'll talk about, and I'd go home that night, read the whole book. And then I'd come back and tell everyone, like, oh, yeah, he dies at the end or whatever. And then my teacher got mad and called my mom at her school. It was like, hey, you need to tell him to stop reading ahead. He's telling everybody all this stuff. He needs to stay on the same track as the rest of the class and shit. And I was like, my mom was like, okay, yeah. And then she told me, she's like, don't worry about it. Just read all you want. Read the whole book. Just don't talk about it in class until it's time to talk about that part. So she was always really encouraging for that. And then my mom is like, she's awesome. She's still to this day my biggest fan, even though I'm an insane person. can write crazy stuff. She reads it all, and she's the best.
So parents, you gotta love the supportive parent that are just going, yes, I will read everything you do. That's awesome to hear. So I wanted to ask you something else as well. Like, I'm also always curious about authors and their publishing. And what are some of the struggles you went through in your writing career in order to get your work seen and published by other companies?
Well, rejection is just, it's part of the arts, right? If you're going to pursue the arts in any form, there's going to be some form of rejection you're going to have to deal with, right? I call it the calluses that build up. Like learning guitar, you get the calluses on your fingers. You just have to kind of get this mindset where you can't take it personally, right? And that's what happens with a lot of people. They kind of think it's a personal attack on them if their story doesn't get accepted. And like I said, I was talking earlier about just submitting. I keep a spreadsheet still to this day. Back when I first started, that I would just, it would be like the day, what I was submitting to, what story I submitted, and then like if there was payment, if it got accepted or rejected. And there's just like so many rejections at the beginning, just like 70 columns rejected. It just goes down, reject. Then you get like one accept in there, and then there's a bunch of more rejections, and accept. It's writing and publishing your work is not this is not an instant gratification thing by any means. So it's just like I said, you just can't give up. That's the main thing. You get discouraged, you get angry. Like I said, to take it personally, you have to look at the rejections as just like, this doesn't mean it's bad. It just means that this is not for that publisher, not for that magazine, right? It doesn't mean it sucks. It doesn't mean you should give up. It just means like that. And if an editor gives you any bit of feedback at all from that, that's a good thing. Like, take that as like a compliment. They don't have time to give feedback to hundreds of stories that they had to read on the slush pile and stuff. So, take that. If you get any feedback, that's always a good thing. But just know it's something you can't take too personally. You can't let it destroy you, I guess.
No, not at all. I feel that I agree with what you just said. You're going to get the rejection from all sorts of angles, and it's just one of the learning aspects. And when you said maybe it's just not for that publishing person, or like the book company, they get so many, so maybe even similar stories. So it's probably overwhelming, probably on their end. So I agree. There's a lot that goes into this. So honestly, I just wanted to go on like a different topic, like read Sinkhole. It cheered me up on some crazy times, and no problem. When I first read it, I really needed the laugh at the time, so I couldn't put it down. And it's just a short story, but then it led me to getting some of your other books here. But it's one of my favorites, and I'm curious to know. And there's others that I love as well, but it's quite the comedy as well. Would you love to know? I would love to know where your inspiration came from that book, Sinkhole.
Oh yeah, actually, there is a funny story about Sinkhole. So, I live in Las Vegas right now. I lived in Las Vegas for the past multiple years, but I grew up in Texas, right? So, there's just tons of hurricanes where I was at. I always went through tons of like shit growing up, there's flooding, all kinds of storm stuff. So several years back when Hurricane Harvey hit Houston, it was pretty bad. It flooded a lot of stuff. It was pretty terrible for a lot of people. And like a huge tree got knocked down in my backyard, my shed up, knocked all my fences down, and there's like a foot of water, whatever. The water goes down, everything is fine. And I noticed that there's like this, like kind of like a divot in my backyard, like about 3 or 4 feet diameter, around. And I'm like, what's that? And my buddy Nick D is one of my best friends. He still lives in Houston. We used to write a bunch of stuff together. He was like, hey man, you got a sinkhole out there. And I was like, I don't got a sinkhole. What is this, Florida? Ha ha. And we would watch it week after week, get a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper. And I'm like throwing like bones in for them, like for the dogs. Like, go check it out. See if it's things that, we're just laughing. And we started making up a bunch of books about being in the sinkhole. And so we're just riffing back and forth. And one day he was like, hey, Dad, wouldn't it be funny if like it opened up and there's like a bus of children down there? And I was like, actually, that, and then the sparks start going off of in my head. And I was like, let me write that down real quick. So that's where it came from. And it turned out what it was a fucking pipe burst or broke or collapsed that runs underneath my house, and it was a huge pain in the ass to get fixed, and it sucked. But that's where the inspiration comes. So at least I got a book out of it.
Well, hey, there's some positive things that come from bad situations, for sure. I knew it came from a real-life scenario of sorts when I was reading it. I was like, I bet you any money some crazy story happened to make you want to write this. And my other question about Sinkhole, and I've messaged you before personally, and I was saying, like, who would you like to cast for some of the characters in the book if you could? I already told you who I think would be cool, but who would you cast if you could in the movie Sinkhole if it were to turn into?
You know what, man? I was thinking about that question, and I honestly don't even know. That's why I was going to ask you for more, like, who would you see in those roles? Like,
well, that's because it's just the main characters at the beginning of the couple, right? So it would have to be. I was telling you, Mink Soul, I think would be a good one, and hey, maybe my native brother Dakota House could play her husband. So it's so you never know. There's only a couple characters in it, so I think it basically consists of the two characters in the house.
Bill Moseley might be able to play.
Hey, there's another one that would be all right. I'd like to see somebody comedic too. Somebody like that can go to town with the dick jokes as well, and kind of really
play that frustrated energy pretty well, I think.
Yeah, but it's just I'm always curious to know about authors and who they would maybe pick. It's cool that you'd like to hear the fans' perspective because it's really all up to the fans. Because when we read it, we sometimes pick certain people that we think would maybe mesh well with the characters. And I think Mink Soul playing Betsy would be kind of hilarious because she's more focused on the cat than anything. I notice. Like I always say throughout the book, like she could care less that all this shit's going down in the house, and she's just worried about the cat. Like, I'm more worried about making his house. So fantastic that she was just kind of clueless. And I don't know. I think Mink Soul would be a good one.
That's good.
Yeah. So on to another question, my friend. Writing such a wide variety of books and having your own fan base. Now, what is next for you, or what are some of the goals that you might be working on?
You know what, man? I'm always writing constantly. So I have up here in Las Vegas, I've partnered with a come on publishing house called Avant Pop Books. They want to put out my next 3 books, which I've actually already written. So like I said, I write all the time. So next year, there's a slate of 3 original books coming out for me. Then I've also been hired by Encyclopocalypse Publishing. They do novelizations of movies, like old horror movies, just cult movies, stuff like that. And they announced it, so I can talk about it. But they have me. They hired me to novelize the movie "The Masturbating Gunman." That
would be a good one.
It's about a guy who, I guess he's like a detective or a mercenary or something, but he gets hired to go do stuff, and he wears this rubber mask, and he's really big, but his weakness is if he gets aroused at all, he has to stop what he's doing and masturbate to completion. So the bad guys have titty chicks come out, distract him so that they can get away, and it's just it's bizarre but very funny. So I'm doing that, and then I'm working on turning my book Deadline into a script as well. So trying to mess with that.
Because I was going to mention to you, I was hoping that you would come up with some kind of screenplay adaptation for one of your books. I like reading screenplays sometimes. As a horror fan, when I went on Amazon, thinking horror movie screenplays kind of thing, and not much came up. So I like to keep busy reading screenplays as well, like in book form. So I'm excited for that one. And then what was it? The masturbating.
Called a masturbating gunman.
The masturbating gunman. Now that just sounds like something I would see and probably instantly. I wouldn't most likely buy it. I like the cheesy movie B genre, and I think that would definitely intrigue people's attention just by the name alone. So
it is an interesting movie. It's funny. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be funny, but it's got funny parts. But it's going to be fun to write for sure.
Oh wow, I'm excited to hear about it. This is awesome to know because as a fan, you're always curious to know what you're doing on the side, and hey, that sounds pretty exciting.
Appreciate that.
No problem. So,
also I was going to say, I just remembered. Sorry, my band John Wayne Comunale, we put out a new album this past year. It came out on cassette, but the vinyl is coming out in February of 2025.
All right, people.
A bunch of dates around that as well.
February 2025. You guys hear that? So you have a website, so go check them out. Make sure you guys remember February 2025. The vinyl and cassette. You said
the cassette is already out.
Okay.
We have a few cassettes in the first run left, so you can order those from me at johnwaynesdead.com. But when the vinyl comes out, it's one color, but then we'll have a new running of the tapes. There'll be two colors of the tape.
All right. So mark your calendars, everyone. I'll be tuning into your website a lot more now that I've been kind of keeping up with some of your books here. It's like I said, it's one of my many goals to read all of your books. So I'm definitely gonna hop on your website and check out your music and grab some books. Do you autograph them when you get them sometimes, or if I request maybe?
Yeah, no. If anything's ordered from my website, I always sign it.
Nice. All right.
I got to figure out, so you're up in Canada, right? Is that correct?
Yes, this is true.
They just got the mail back here, right?
Oh, yeah, we just got off strike, I think, last week.
Okay, so I'll have to figure that out, because I had to turn all that stuff off on my website. Anyway, we'll figure that out later.
Yeah, well, there you go.
It's you order from me, I sign, I personalize it, and I always send, extra artwork and some pictures and stuff just because I appreciate it. Because you can order my stuff from anywhere. I appreciate any support. Get it from, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, whatever you do. But if you want to order it from me, of course, I'll take care of you a little bit extra.
All right. I figure you would. I figure your website would give us a little bit extra. I just had a gut feeling. So, on to my next question, my friend. All right. Writing such a wide variety of books and having your own... I already... reading the script here. I already asked.
That's all right. You're good, man. We're good.
All right. Jeez. I got to stop, going to Mary Jane so often. I wouldn't have these problems.
More. You got to go more. That's the thing.
All right. So, do you get some of your ideas and funny one-liners in your books from people you know or you have met throughout the years?
Yes. Absolutely. Like I said, my buddy Nick, we wrote a copy for a comedy show for, I don't know, 2.5 years or something in Houston. But he was my friend since I was 19, and we've always been, just riffing stuff. We would make funny videos, just being silly and goofy. And so he's influenced me a lot. A lot of the one-liners, I just meet crazy people on the road all the time. And sometimes they just say wild things, and I'm like, all right, I got to file that away. But my dad, growing up, also had a lot of weird sayings that he would, that I would grow up and be like, oh, that's what that means. Like, he would call me a meat whistle all the time, and I was like, a meat whistle. And I'm like, oh, that's dude, stuff like that. So, I just collect them from interesting people I meet, and then I maybe put my own spin on them, put them in the books.
Another gut feeling I had from I was like, what, I guarantee you, writing some of these, you probably knew some of these characters, but added your own flavor and twist to it for sure. But, I'd like to have a conversation with you. I know you do quite a few conventions. You do the horror con scene. So if you ever come to Canada, I was mentioning to you before, I'm sure we'd like to have you down. Us Canadians would love to see your books and read them. I just know it. I just have a gut feeling.
Yeah, I would love to come up there. I gotta shoot me some information about any cool cons up there. Maybe I'll see if they'll take me in.
Yeah, we got Shockstock coming up in May, and that's in London, Ontario. So we usually have vendors, booths, guests. It's usually quite a ride. I have not been to that one per se, but I've been to the horror ramas around here. But I have a couple more questions here. So I got two more for you. Since you have published quite a few books, and horror-themed books, I should say, what are some of your favorite horror movies that come to mind?
So, my stuff, as you've probably seen, from the stuff that you've read, I do like more of a psychological horror, like twists and turns. I was heavily influenced by Twilight Zone and The Outer Limits and stories when I was a kid, so I really like those kind of movies and stuff the most. One of my favorite movies of all time, and a favorite horror movie, of course, is The Gate. Have you seen that?
Oh yes, I actually met Linda Johnson, Terry's mom's character, and I thought that was really cool. Horror Reality.
That movie captured my imagination as a kid, so just so much. I mean, how could it not? Kids play a fucking metal record backwards, summon, open a portal to hell, think they close it, we didn't, and all hell breaks loose. I mean, it's awesome. I can watch it anytime. That's definitely one of my favorites for sure.
Yeah, it's a good fantasy twist with some horror. Yeah, it's a good cult favorite over here in Canada. I think my last question here for you, brother, before I end their interview, what are some good tips to fellow authors out there to follow to be successful?
Well, I mean, all I can say is, don't take this as scripture. This is just what works for me. So that's what I can relate. And, I would say have a good routine in place. If you want to be a writer, you have to write. So you can't just necessarily be like, well, I'm not inspired today per se, so I'll just wait. I mean, that attitude kind of works maybe for some people or maybe a little bit. I know I used to be that way when I first started playing and writing music. But then it's just like, this is a talent that I have to sharpen. This is a skill, right? So you constantly have to be hammering that sword against the anvil to make it sharper and sharper. You can't do that unless you practice. So I always have a goal for myself every day. I'm going to write X amount of words. I'm always constantly working on a project. But I also tell people, even if you sit down and write one paragraph that day, you did something towards your craft, right? And you have to invest in your craft. It's incremental. It's just like learning an instrument. If you want to play the guitar, you better practice every day or you're not going to be playing the guitar very well. So I would say that, and then don't give up. Like we were talking about earlier, rejections are going to come. They're going to happen. But if you hang with it and you really, really sharpen your craft and really, because that's what you're going to want to do, it'll happen. You just have to stay doing it.
100%. And anything that you do, you just gotta keep going at it. You have some failures, some bumps in the road, but eventually from those bumps in the road, you do find at the end of the road a success story. So I think what you're saying is 100% true. And I wanted to say before I ended the show, John, it was more than a pleasure having a conversation with you. I feel like as a fan, it's like we're having it virtually, but I know in person, if I were to meet you, I'd probably bugging you a little bit more. So thanks for coming on. I really do appreciate it. And Merry Christmas, all that jazz to you. And thanks for coming on my little dog and pony show here that I have on my YouTube. So maybe one day again we'll chat again.
Absolutely, dude. It's my pleasure. Please stay in touch. Always good to hear from you. Thank you for having me on. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Check me out, johnwaynesdead.com. And have a good holiday as well, dude.
You as well, and I'll make sure to link that down below for everybody. All right, well, it was great talking to you, and maybe we'll do this again sometime.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, man.
All right, have a good day.
All right,
bye.